issued a subpoena for Secretary Clinton to appear today for a deposition in furtherance of the committee's investigation into the actions and investigations of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell. I will enter the original subpoena and corresponding cover letter from August 5, 2025, as well as the additional subpoena from December 15, 2025, determining a new date as Exhibit 1.
Excuse me, counsel. For the record, I want to put in one sentence from the cover letter to the subpoena, and that's the chairman's own definition of the scope of this investigation. He wrote, and I quote, "It's to conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking laws generally, and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell." Thank you.
As stated in the email correspondence with counsel for Secretary Clinton in negotiations for the scope regarding today's deposition, the scope agreed upon by counsel for the committee and counsel for Secretary Clinton stated, and I quote, "As conveyed to you in a letter from the chairman yesterday morning that you agreed to, the committee could not accept your proposed limitation on the scope of President Clinton's testimony. Accordingly, pursuant to the committee's investigation into the alleged mismanagement of the federal government's investigation into Mr. Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Ghislaine Maxwell, the circumstances and subsequent investigations of Mr. Epstein's death, the operation of sex trafficking rings and ways of the federal government to effectively combat them, ways in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to curry favor and exercise influence to protect their legal activities, and potential violations of ethics rules related to elected officials, the committee will ask President Clinton and Secretary Clinton all of its questions regarding Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, including, but not limited to, the personal relationships between the Clintons and Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell, and the ways in which Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell sought to curry favor and exercise influence, as well as the operation of sex trafficking rings and the ways for the federal government to effectively combat them without the proposed limitations on scope sought in your January 31, 2026 letter."
I will enter as Exhibit 2 the correspondence between Chairman Comer and counsel for President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. This correspondence includes the following letters. October 6, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. October 22, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. November 3, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. November 21, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. December 10, 2025, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. December 15, 2025, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. January 3, 2026, letter from David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer and Ranking Member Garcia. January 8, 2026, letter from Chairman Comer to David E. Kendall. January 12, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer. January 13, 2026, letter from President William J. Clinton and Secretary Hillary R. Clinton to Chairman Comer, encompassing attached declarations under the penalty of perjury of both President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. January 20, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and David E. Kendall to Chairman Comer. January 31, 2026, letter from Ashley Callan and Catherine M. Turner to Chairman Comer. And February 2, 2026, letter from Chairman Comer to Ashley Callan and Catherine M. Turner. The committee originally noticed the deposition on December 12, 2025 for Secretary Clinton to appear before the committee on December 18, 2025. I will mark that notice as Exhibit 3. I will mark as Exhibit 4 the postponed notice date, December 16, 2025, for a deposition of Secretary Clinton to occur on January 14, 2026. Secretary Clinton did not appear for her deposition on January 14, 2026. I will enter as Exhibit 5 the transcript for the deposition for which Secretary Clinton failed to appear. The committee noticed a committee business meeting on January 14, 2026 to consider the contempt report for Secretary Hillary R. Clinton to be held on January 21st, 2026. I will mark that notice as Exhibit 6. I will mark as Exhibit 7 the contempt report for Secretary Hillary R. Clinton, voted favorably out of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. I will mark as Exhibit 8 the final roll call vote sheet on favorably reporting the contempt report of Secretary Hillary R. Clinton out of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The committee noticed today's deposition on February 19, 2026. I will enter the notice for this deposition as Exhibit 9. I will enter as Exhibit 10 an email thread between Committee on Oversight and Government Reform staff and counsel for President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. The email thread confirms the date, time, and location, among other terms, of today's deposition. Additionally, this email thread clearly states the agreed upon terms, including but not limited to video recording, no predetermined time limit, and scope. Can the witness please state her name for the record?
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Thank you. My name is Billy Grant. I am the Deputy Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman James Comer. Under the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform's rules, you are allowed to have counsel present to advise you during this deposition. Do you have counsel representing you in a personal capacity present with you today?
I do.
Will all counsel please identify themselves for the record?
David Kendall, Williams and Connolly, LLP.
Catherine Turner, Williams and Connolly, LLP.
Cheryl Mills, counsel to the secretary.
Thank you. For the record, starting with the majority staff, can the additional staff members please introduce themselves with their name, title, and affiliation?
Jack Emmer, Chief Counsel for Investigations for Chairman Comer.
Peter Spector, Deputy Director of Oversight for Chairman Comer.
Daniel Ashworth, General Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Ryan Giacchetti, Chief Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Will Harness, Professional Staff Member for Chairman Comer.
Emily Feierabend, Counsel for Chairman Comer.
Melvin Soto, the Digital Director for Chairman Comer.
Allison Tolan, Counsel, Chairman Comer. Hannah Caffey, Professional Staff Member, Chairman Comer.
Professional staff member.
Chairman Comer.
Thank you.
Could you have used a microphone?
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you over there. Could you please repeat your name?
Austin Hacker.
No, this gentleman here in the black.
Mark Morin,
Thank you.
Staff Director, Chairman Comer.
And the next one?
Jasmine Collins, Communications Director for the Majority Staff.
Okay.
Mallory Kovar, Chief Clerk and Director of Operations, Chairman Comer.
Ashley Vineyard, Deputy Staff Director for Chairman Comer.
Would the majority members please announce themselves for the record?
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, South Carolina.
Congressman Eric Burleson, Southwest Missouri.
Michael Cloud, 27th District of Texas.
Lauren Bobert, Colorado Sports District. Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, Florida 13.
William Timmons, South Carolina 4th Congressional District.
Rep. John McGuire, Virginia 5th District.
Will the minority staff please identify themselves for the record? Would the minority members please announce themselves for the record?
Ranking Member Robert Garcia.
Representative Steelhouse, Silvermine, Virginia. Representative James Walkinshaw, Virginia 11.
Representative Yathman Ansari, Arizona's 3rd District.
And I'm James Comer, Chairman of the committee from Kentucky.
Thank you all. Secretary Clinton, before we begin, I would like to go over the ground rules for this deposition. The questioning will proceed in rounds. The majority will ask questions for an hour, and then the minority will have an opportunity to ask questions for an hour if they choose. To the extent members have questions for the witness, they will be propounded during their side's respective rounds. The clock will stop if you need to confer with counsel, your counsel is speaking, and when members or staff are speaking during the opposing side's round of questions. We will alternate back and forth until there are no more questions. Do you understand?
I do.
There is a court reporter taking down everything I say and everything you say to make a written record of the deposition. For the record to be clear, please wait until the staffer questioning you finishes each question before you begin your answer, and the staffer will wait until you finish your response before proceeding to the next question. Further, to ensure the court reporter can properly record this deposition, please speak clearly, concisely, and slowly. Also, the court reporter cannot record nonverbal answers, such as nodding or shaking your head, so it is important that you answer each question with an audible verbal answer. Do you understand?
I do.
Exhibits may be entered into the record. Majority exhibits will be identified numerically. Minority exhibits will be identified alphabetically. Do you understand?
I do.
We want you to answer our questions in the most complete and truthful manner possible, so we'll take our time. If you have any questions or do not fully understand the question, please let us know. We will attempt to clarify, add context to, or rephrase our questions. If we ask about specific conversations or events in the past and you are unable to recall the exact words or details, you should testify to the substance of those conversations or events to the best of your recollection. If you recall only a part of a conversation or event, you should give us your best recollection of those events or parts of conversations that you do recall. Do you understand?
I do.
You are required by law to answer questions from Congress truthfully. This also applies to questions posed by congressional staff in this deposition. Do you understand?
I do.
If at any time you knowingly make false statements, you could be subject to criminal prosecution, including but not limited to perjury. Do you understand?
I do.
This includes both knowingly providing false testimony, but also stating that you do not recall or remember something when in fact you do. Do you understand?
I do.
Furthermore, you cannot tell half-truths or exclude information necessary to make statements accurate. You are required to provide all information that would make your response truthful. A deliberate failure to disclose information can constitute a false statement. Do you understand?
I do.
Is there any reason you are unable to provide truthful testimony in today's interview?
No.
Please note that if you wish to assert a privilege over any statement today, that assertion must comply with the rules of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. Pursuant to that, Committee Rule 16C1 states, for the chair to consider assertions of privilege over testimony or statements, witnesses or entities must clearly state the specific privilege being asserted and the reason for the assertion on or before the scheduled date of testimony or appearance. For the purposes of the deposition, objections must be stated concisely and in a non-argumentative and non-suggestive manner. If the witness refuses to answer a question to preserve a privilege, the committee may seek a ruling from the chair. If the chair overrules any such objection, the witness shall be ordered to answer. If the witness continues to refuse to answer a question despite being ordered to do so, the witness may be subject to sanction. Do you understand?
Insofar as I understand the rules of privilege, I don't have any specific knowledge of your committee's ideas of privilege.
Understood. Ordinarily, we take a 5-minute break at the end of each hour of questioning, but if you need a longer break or a break before that, please let us know and we will be happy to accommodate. However, to the extent that there is a pending question, we would ask that you finish answering the question before we take a break. Do you understand?
Yes.
Finally, I will note for everyone here today that the contents of what we discuss in the deposition is confidential under the House deposition regulation. Under the rules, the chairman and ranking minority member shall consult before any release of testimony or transcripts, including portions thereof. This means it is a violation of House and committee rules to disclose content of the deposition prior to its official release. For this reason, the marked exhibits that we will use today will remain with the court reporter so that they can go into the official transcript, and any copies of those exhibits will be kept at the table or returned to us when we wrap up. Can the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this deposition will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have any other questions before we begin?
Yes, I have an opening statement that I would like to deliver before we begin. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, members of the committee, as a former United States Senator, I have respect for legislative oversight, and I expect its exercise, as do the American people, to be principled and fearless in pursuit of truth and accountability. As we all know, however, too often congressional investigations are partisan political theater, which is an abdication of duty and an insult to the American people. Its subpoena to me based on its assumption that I have information regarding the investigations into the criminal activities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Let me be as clear as I can. I do not. As I stated in my sworn declaration on January 13th, I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. Like every decent person, I've been horrified by what we have learned about their crimes. It's unfathomable that Mr. Epstein initially got a slap on the wrist in 2008, which allowed him to continue his predatory practices for another decade. Mr. Chairman, your investigation is supposed to be assessing the federal government's handling of the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein and his crimes. You subpoenaed 8 law enforcement officials, all of whom ran the Department of Justice or directed the FBI when Epstein's crimes were investigated and prosecuted. Of those 8, only 1 appeared before the committee. 5 of the 6 former attorneys general were allowed to submit brief statements stating they had no information to provide. You have held 0 public hearings, refused to allow the media to attend them, including today, despite espousing the need for transparency on dozens of occasions. You have made little effort to call the people who show up most prominently in the Epstein files. And when you did, not a single Republican member showed up for Les Wexner's deposition. This institutional failure is designed to protect one political party and one public official, rather than to seek truth and justice for the victims and survivors, as well as inform the public who want to get to the bottom of this matter. My heart breaks for the survivors, and I am furious on their behalf. I have spent my life advocating for women and girls. I have worked hard to stop the terrible abuses so many women and girls face here and around the world, including human trafficking, forced labor, domestic violence, and sexual slavery. For too long, these have been largely invisible crimes or not treated as crimes at all. But the survivors are real and they are entitled to justice. In Southeast Asia, I met girls as young as 12 years old who had been forced into prostitution and raped repeatedly. Some were dying of AIDS. In Eastern Europe, I met mothers who told me how they lost their daughters to trafficking and did not know where to turn. In settings around the world, I met survivors trying to rebuild their lives and help rescue others with little support from people in power who too often turned a blind eye and a cold shoulder. If you are new to this issue, let me tell you, Jeffrey Epstein was a heinous individual, but he's far from alone. This is not a one-off tabloid sensation or political scandal. It is a global scourge with an unimaginable human toll. My work combating sex trafficking goes back to my days as First Lady. I worked to pass the first federal legislation against trafficking and was proud that my husband signed the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which increased support for survivors and gave prosecutors better tools for going after traffickers. As Secretary of State, I appointed a former federal prosecutor, Lucy DeBaca, to ramp up our global anti-trafficking efforts. I oversaw nearly 170 anti-trafficking programs in 70 nations and directly pressed foreign leaders to crack down on trafficking networks in their countries. Every year, we published a global report to shine a light on abuses. The findings of those reports triggered sanctions on countries failing to make progress, so they became a powerful diplomatic tool to drive concrete action. I insisted that the United States be included in the report for the first time ever in 2011, because we must hold ourselves not just to the same standard as the rest of the world, but to an even higher one. Sex trafficking and modern slavery should have no place in America. None. Infuriatingly, the Trump administration gutted the Trafficking in Persons Office at the State Department, cutting more than 70% of the career civil and foreign service experts who worked so hard to prevent trafficking crimes. The annual trafficking report required by law was delayed for months. The message from the Trump administration to the American people and the world could not be clearer. Combating human trafficking is no longer an American priority under the Trump White House. That's a tragedy, it's a scandal, and it deserves vigorous investigation and oversight. A committee endeavoring to stopping human trafficking would seek to understand what specific steps are needed to fix a legal system that allowed Epstein to get away with his crime.
I was dealing with back pain every day. My old mattress has no support. And honestly, my back pain has gotten even worse.
So, I upgraded to the Sleep Company mattress, जो कि है इंडिया का first and only smart grid technology mattress. Smart grid मुझे देता है soft comfort और firm back support ताकि मेरी back पूरे दिन aligned रहे. The mattress also has SnowTech cooling fabric that keeps it 4 to 6 degrees cooler. Cool, comfy, and perfectly supportive. It's like sleeping on a cloud. You also get a 10-year warranty and 100-night trial. If it doesn't work for you, which I doubt, you can return it. No questions asked. Search for the Sleep Company online and find your nearest store now.
His crimes. And it would demand that Secretary Rubio and Attorney General Bondi testify about why this administration is abandoning survivors and playing into the hands of traffickers. It would seek out advocates and law enforcement officials on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking and ask them what support they need. And it would put forth legislation to provide more resources and force this administration to act. But that's not happening. Instead, you have compelled me to testify, fully aware that I have no knowledge that would assist your investigation in order to distract from President Trump's actions and to cover them up despite legitimate calls for answers. If this committee is serious about learning the truth about Epstein's trafficking crimes, it would not rely on press gaggles to get answers from our current president on his involvement. It would ask him directly under oath about the tens of thousands of times he shows up in the Epstein files. If the majority was serious, it would not waste time on fishing expeditions. There is too much to be done. What is being held back? Who is being protected? And why the cover-up? So my challenge to you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee is the same challenge I put to myself throughout my long service to this nation. How to be worthy of the trust of the American people that they have given to you. They expect statesmanship, not gamesmanship, leading, not grandstanding. And they expect you to use your power to get to the truth and to do more to help survivors of Epstein's crimes, as well as the millions more who are victims of sex trafficking in this country and around the world. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would also like to request that the video of this deposition be made available within 24 hours, as it has been for other witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The time reads 11:34 a.m. The majority's time will begin now. Madam Secretary, in the interest of efficiency here today, I'm going to ask you one question followed by a list of names. The question can be answered yes or no. If you do indicate yes to an individual, I will come back and revisit that at the end. The question is, have you ever communicated with any of the following people relating to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? Richard Kahn.
No.
Darren N. Dyke.
No.
Sarah Kellen.
No.
Doug Band.
Not that I recall.
Lawrence Summers.
No.
Huma Abedin.
Have I ever talked to her about this in preparation for this hearing? I have.
Outside of that?
Not that I recall.
Noam Chomsky.
No.
Leslie Groff,
No.
Nadia Marcinkova,
No.
John Luke Brunel,
No. I don't know most of these people. Should I tell you that I know who they are, or just tell you I never talked to them?
just so you never talked to him, it's fine. Alan Dershowitz,
No.
Kathy Rumler,
No.
Bill Richardson,
No.
George Mitchell,
No.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew,
No.
Peter Mandelson,
No.
Reed Hoffman,
No.
Karina Shuliak,
No.
Bill Gates,
No.
Ehud Barak,
No.
Woody Allen,
No.
Sandy Berger,
No.
Jess Staley,
No.
Paul Morris,
No.
Leon Black,
No.
Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayam,
No.
Leslie Wexner,
No.
Jack Kessler,
No.
Mark Middleton,
No.
Harvey Weinstein,
No.
Ellie de Rothschild,
No.
Ariane de Rothschild,
No.
Lynn Forrester de Rothschild,
No.
any other members of the de Rothschild family,
No.
Glenn Dubin,
No.
Eva Anderson Dubin,
No.
Casey Wasserman,
No.
Larry Visoki,
No.
David Rogers,
No.
Ira Magaziner,
No.
Daniel Gilbert,
No.
Karen Ewing,
No.
Stacy Plaskett,
Not that I recall.
Howard Lutnick,
No, not that I recall.
Steve Bannon,
I don't know if I've ever met him. You all have to introduce me.
I take that as a no.
Just to be absolutely clear, you've asked if I've ever communicated about Jeffrey Epstein, a man I never met, with any of these people, most of whom I've never heard of and certainly not met. That's the premise of your question.
Mr. Epstein or Mrs. Maxwell.
You did not say that.
I did say that in the beginning. I will repeat the question.
No, that's okay, but I didn't talk about her with any of these people either. I
Understood.
barely knew her.
David Gergen,
No,
Elon Musk,
no,
Abigail Johnson,
no,
Jeff Bezos,
no,
Larry Page,
no,
Sergey Brin,
no,
Louis Freya,
no.
a new member arrived. Would they please introduce themselves for the record?
Wesley Bell, congressional, Missouri First Congressional District.
Thank you, sir.
Can I intercede? Could you read back the initial premise of your question? Because I too did not hear.
Yes, ma'am. Have you ever communicated with any of the following people relating to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell?
I didn't hear the Maxwell piece, but we could ask her. It doesn't matter. It's the same answer, but I did not hear the Maxwell name in there.
Understood.
So was the last name you said Larry Page?
It was Sergey Brin.
The last name I stated was Louis Frey. You indicated no, is that correct?
I think,
Free.
you need free?
Free, yes, ma'am.
Louis
No.
Free.
No,
And Sarah Kay.
no. And these are all to the best of my recollection, as I say, many of these people I've never heard of. Most of these people I've never had a relationship with, although I know their name. Some of them are deceased. But I was not communicating about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, as I understand what you're asking me, contacting people about them. That did not happen.
Is there anyone that you had a conversation with about Ghislaine Maxwell?
Oh, I'm sure I've talked about Ghislaine Maxwell, and especially in preparation for this hearing.
And outside of conversations with your counsel, what did you talk about Ms. Maxwell?
I don't recall any conversations about Miss Maxwell, but I knew her casually, so I can't tell you that I never had a conversation that mentioned Ghislaine Maxwell's name, because I don't recall that.
Understood. And you say that you knew Ms. Maxwell casually. What does that mean?
Just what I said. I knew her primarily as someone who dated someone that I knew.
And who was that individual?
Ted Waite.
And who was Ted Waite?
Ted Waite was a successful, as I recall, software developer.
And roughly, when would the first time Ms. Maxwell would have come up in relation to Mr. Waite?
I don't recall, but, perhaps sometime around 2010, because he was invited to my daughter's wedding and she was his guest.
Have you ever spoken with Ms. Maxwell personally yourself?
I'm sure I have, yes.
Did you estimate on how many occasions?
Not many. I didn't see her very often.
When would the first occasion have been?
I have no recollection.
Did your first interaction with Ms. Maxwell occur while President Clinton was president of the United States and you were First Lady of the United States?
No, I do not recall ever meeting her while Bill was still in the White House.
Did Mr. Waite ever inform you what Ms. Maxwell did for a living?
Not that I recall.
Did anyone ever indicate to you what Ms. Maxwell did for a living?
Not that I recall.
When would the last time have been that you either communicated with Ms. Maxwell, even if not directly yourself, but been around Ms. Maxwell?
The best of my recollection is at the wedding in 2010.
Would you consider Ms. Maxwell a friend?
No,
Would you consider her a friend of President Clinton?
he'll have to answer that.
Would you consider Ms. Maxwell a friend of your daughter?
She probably was friendlier with her than I was, because I didn't see her very often.
How often would your daughter have seen Ms. Maxwell?
I have no idea. But again, it was in the context of her being in a relationship with Ted Waite.
Anyone else in your family have a relationship of some kind with Ms. Maxwell?
Well, that's my family. You asked about Bill and Chelsea.
And just to make clear for the record, have you ever met Jeffrey Epstein?
I do not recall ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein. In preparation for this hearing, I was told that he attended an event at the White House that was put on by the White House Historical Association. But I have no recollection of that.
And only that one time at the White House Historical Association?
That's the only time that I'm aware of that I might have possibly been in the same room with him.
Did you have an initial impression of Mr. Epstein?
I have no recollection of Mr. Epstein. I'm just told that he was in a room at a dinner that we were hosting for the White House Historical Association.
What was your understanding of what Mr. Epstein did for work?
I knew nothing about him. He was there as an invited guest by the White House Historical Association. That's my best recollection.
And no one else informed you of what Mr. Epstein did for work?
No, but we had hundreds and thousands of people who came to the White House. I was not informed of what people did or didn't do for work, especially someone that I never even had a conversation with.
Do you know who invited Mr. Epstein to the White House?
I can only tell you what I know, which is that he apparently was a guest invited by the White House Historical Association to attend a dinner to thank people who gave money to the White House Historical Association for the upkeep and maintenance of the White House. That's what I was informed of in preparation for coming here.
Yes, ma'am. And understanding we focused the last few questions on your time in the White House with President Clinton. After that time period of President Clinton's administration, did anyone ever tell you what Mr. Epstein did for a living?
I don't recall ever talking about Mr. Epstein. He was not on my radar. He was not somebody that I had any connection to.
When President Clinton was traveling with Mr. Epstein on Clinton Foundation business, no one associated with the foundation at that time discussed Mr. Epstein with you?
Not that I recall. I was not involved with the foundation. I was a senator from New York, and I was deeply committed to my work, and it became one of the most intense experiences of my life when we were attacked on 9/11. I was not involved with what was happening to create the foundation, to create the work that was done to get low-cost drugs for AIDS. I knew about the work. I didn't know about the details.
Understood. And to be clear, you never had any communication yourself with Mr. Epstein, whether that be face-to-face interaction, phone calls, emails, text
Asked and
messages?
answered. You can answer it again.
I have no recollection in any way of ever having any conversation at the White House or in any other place or on any kind of device of any sort. I knew nothing about him.
And when did you learn of Mr. Epstein's 2006 indictment and subsequent arrest leading to his incarceration in 2008?
I have no idea. I was not paying attention. I was running for re-election in 2006. I ran for president in 2007, 2008. I don't know that I ever learned about it until much later when more things came out about him.
Understood. And when did you first learn of Mr. Epstein's arrest in 2019?
probably when it happened, because it was headline news. I'm sure I, like everybody else, saw it in the press.
And in seeing that in the press, did you discuss Mr. Epstein or his case at the time with anyone?
I'm sure we did, because it was a, big story.
And Mr. Epstein died in custody after following his 2019 arrest. When would you have learned of his death?
Whenever it was reported.
Going back slightly a question, you said you likely would have talked to someone regarding his arrest in 2019. Who would you have discussed that with?
Whoever was around. I mean, it was a big story, as you recall. It was a very big story. I don't have any specific recollections. It wasn't something that I was particularly focused on, but it was a big story.
And going back to Ms. Colin Maxwell, when did you learn of her arrest in 2021?
Again, whenever it was reported as happening.
And did you discuss that with anyone?
I'm sure I did. It was another big story.
Crisp, trendy, and so clean. Is that a boy? No, yeah. It's Bloom. Haven't you seen? Bloom hai, always clean.
So moving forward in time just a little bit, you were Secretary of State under President Obama, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And it was during his first term, 2009 to 2013?
That's correct.
And after you completed your time as Secretary of State, did you return in any role to the Clinton Foundation?
I did. I became active in it at that point.
And by being active in it, could you describe that for us, please?
I tried to support the work that Bill and my daughter and the team had done, and look for ways to be helpful. It was something that I wanted to make sure I could support.
And please correct me if I'm wrong. You rejoined as a board member, is that right?
It might have been the first time I was a board member. I don't remember. Either the first or the second time. Yeah.
And speaking of, it sounds like you were heavily involved when you returned to the foundation, or I guess started with the foundation at this point. In trying to accomplish those goals and initiatives, what were you doing, broadly speaking, on a daily basis, monthly basis, that sort of thing?
Well, I wanted to start a program about early learning for kids. And so we started something called Too Small to Fail, which I was very actively involved in with my daughter. And we worked with pediatricians and other people to help parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles read, talk, and sing to their children so that they could help build brain cells. That was a major priority of mine, and I'm very proud of what we've built and the difference that it's made in, millions of kids' lives. I certainly did what I could to support the work that we do overseas through the Clinton Global Initiative, which has had a terrific track record of bringing people together to work in partnerships, to make commitments, to try to improve everything from clean water to solar energy to improved education, all of the priorities that the partners we have bring to us that we try to help them with.
And thank you for that, Madam Secretary. We've had a few members join us. Would you guys please announce yourselves for the record?
Yes, Pat Fallon, 4th District in Texas.
Scott Perry, 10th District of Pennsylvania.
Thank you both.
You're the last person.
Mr. Perry, Scott Perry.
Thank you so much.
And Madam Secretary, as a board member, what type of responsibilities does that entail?
Oh, attending the board meetings, approving the agenda of work for the year, the budget that goes with it, that kind of responsibility.
And you mentioned the Clinton Global Initiative. Just for clarity, I will likely refer to that as CGI as we go forward with this. CGI is a part of the Clinton Foundation. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And what was your role with CGI at this time period, right after you left being Secretary of State?
It was, again, to, support the staff that put together both the annual meeting, but also work during the year with our partners who'd made commitments to help them fulfill their commitments. So, if there were a meeting about a commitment that was made to get clean water to some very remote place, if there were a meeting, I might be invited to it to meet with the partners, to encourage them. It was mostly around the work that happens throughout the year in preparation for the annual meeting.
And forgive my ignorance, please. What happens at those annual meetings?
The annual meetings are a way for people to come together to make commitments that they have previewed with our staff. So I'll give you an example. Probably around, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 15 years ago, I don't know specifically, Matt Damon, the actor, came to the Clinton Global Initiative because he said he really cared about clean water. And could we connect him with people that he could work with to get more clean water in more places in the world? So we did. We connected him to this gentleman who was a real expert on clean water. They started working together. They created something called water.org, which was a Clinton Global Initiative commitment that was made at the annual meeting. And then our staff worked with them. And I think it's fair to say that, they've been one of the most successful organizations in actually delivering clean water. But it's that kind of work. It's people who might have a good idea. Maybe they've got some resources. Maybe they have some experience. I'll give you another idea. So Procter & Gamble called us and said, one of our scientists, one of our chemists in the UK has created this packet of chemicals that can literally make the dirtiest water clean enough to drink. But we don't know what to do with it because we're a consumer company that sells products to middle-class people. This is something that would go to the very poor. What do we do with it? If we come to CGI, can you connect us with somebody who can help us? So we connected them with World Vision, and I think maybe one or two other organizations. And so they used the packets to literally go around the world cleaning water. And Bill went with them, Chelsea went with them, and they would go to rural Myanmar or rural Kenya, and they would take this bucket of dirty water and they dump the packet in, and then my daughter and my husband would drink it to show that it was clean. And that was a CGI commitment. We bring together governments, local, state, national, businesses, philanthropies, NGOs, academics, anybody who has a good idea that we can help them work on and try to fulfill. That's what we do.
And thank you. The Clinton Foundation started shortly thereafter. Your husband, President Clinton, left office. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And CGI started a few years later. Is that right?
I think that's right. I think it started maybe 2005, maybe. I'm not sure.
And does CGI or the foundation more broadly perform any work in sex trafficking or human trafficking around the world?
There may be partners who make commitments about that. We have thousands and thousands of commitments. So I can't answer yes or no, but it might be an area that some of our commitment makers would be focused on.
And how did the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, how did that idea come to fruition? Was that your idea, President Clinton's idea?
Oh, no, the Clinton Foundation was all Bill's idea. He set it up as he was leaving the White House. It was the entity that raised the money to build the Clinton Presidential Center, and then to carry on the work that he wanted to do. You know, shortly after he got out of the White House, he and Nelson Mandela were asked to come to the annual AIDS conference to see whether the two of them could do something that needed to be done, which was to try to stem the epidemic of HIV/AIDS. And so Bill started out trying to figure out how to deal with this problem and came to the conclusion that the best way would be to lower the price of the drugs that were being used in the United States, but were too expensive to be used around the world in order to treat more people. And I really give huge credit to both Bill's idea about how to do that, but also huge credit to President George W. Bush, because when President Bush took Bill to Pope John Paul's funeral in Rome, he and Bill were talking because President Bush was coming forward with the PEPFAR program. And so he and Bill were talking, and President Bush was very committed to this, and Bill was very committed. And so Bill said to President Bush, I now have generic drugs being made in places like India that are much cheaper than the brand name drugs, and you could, with tax money, treat many more people. And so President Bush, to his credit, said, yeah, but my folks tell me that the drugs aren't as good as ours. And Bill said, I'll give them to you. You give them to the FDA, you test them, and I'll abide by your test. I think you can ask him if you want tomorrow, but I think he gave, I don't know, like 24 drugs, and the FDA approved 22. And President Bush was as good as his word. And so we began as the United States and the Clinton Foundation, because of that connection and that partnership, we began treating millions of people with low-cost drugs with federal PEPFAR money, saving millions of lives. Sadly, that's going to be reversed because of the attitudes of this administration and the cutbacks, but it was one of the great services to humanity. And I give President Bush and I give my husband enormous credit for doing something that wasn't going to get them headlines, wasn't going to get them, you know, some kind of, you know, statue put up, but was saving millions of lives, preventing mother-to-child transmission, preventing, you know, people from dying. So that's what he was doing.
And thank you for that. Did Mr. Band play a significant role in helping set up the foundation initially?
Yes, he did.
And when CGI was initially created, whose idea was that?
It was Bill's idea. He went to Davos and he called me after he'd been at Davos, and he said, you know, a lot of interesting people, but they don't do anything but talk. And I have a better idea. Why don't we get people together? And yeah, they can talk, but they have to make commitments and they have to follow through on the commitments. And we could have an annual meeting that would bring people who were willing to make commitments. And that was his idea. And I thought it was a really good idea. And I encouraged him to go out and see if he could put it together.
Are you aware of are you aware of anyone else helping formulate the idea for CGI?
Oh, I think he talked to a lot of people. I couldn't tell you who, but he talked to a lot of people.
Did Mr. Epstein have a role in shaping the formation of CGI?
I have no idea. I don't know anything about it.
Did Glenn Maxwell have any role in shaping CGI?
I don't have any idea about that.
I will enter as Majority Exhibit 11, the interview between Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Ms. Glenn Maxwell from July of 2025. We'll get you all a copy momentarily.
I mean, look. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And I'm sorry, what was this exhibit?
This will be Majority 11. I would like to direct your attention to page 263.
Okay.
And on page 263, Ms. Maxwell tells Mr. Blanche that she had a role in shaping CGI. You said you were not aware of Ms. Maxwell having any role in shaping CGI.
I was not involved in the creation of CGI. Again, I was in the United States Senate. I was not involved in the work that was done to set up CGI.
No one discussed the formation of CGI with you?
That it was going to be set up, but I don't have any specific recollection of having any specific knowledge of it. No.
Did Mr. Epstein help craft the idea or formulation of CGI?
I don't have any idea. I don't know anything about that.
Is it possible that Ms. Maxwell had a role in creating CGI?
I'm not going to speculate. I'm here to tell you what I know, and I don't know anything about that.
Understood. And is it possible Mr. Epstein had a role in crafting CGI?
I'm not going to speculate about that either because, you know, I have no way of knowing that because I have no direct knowledge.
I will enter now as Majority Exhibit 12. This will be a letter from Mr. Epstein's attorneys. I will give you a second for it to be passed out. This is a letter dated July 6, 2007. It is from Gerald B. Lefcourt. He was an attorney for Mr. Epstein. He sent this to the prosecutors in the Southern District of Florida. That would be Sloman, Minchell, Lori, and Villafania. And I will direct your attention to page 21. That top paragraph on page 21, it says, quote, Mr. Epstein was part of the original group that conceived the Clinton Global Initiative, which is described as a project bringing together a community of global leaders to devise and implement innovative solutions to some of the world's most pressing challenges. Again, is it possible that Mr. Epstein played a role in crafting CGI?
I have no idea what he did or what he said he did, and I have no way to testify to the veracity of either. I was not involved.
Have you seen this document before?
No.
The Clinton Foundation accepts donations as part of carrying out its work. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And when seeking, let me take a step back. People charitably provide donations to the foundation.
It's a 501c3, yes.
And do you or anyone else at the foundation ever solicit donations for the foundation?
I'm sure that happens. People talk to us, we talk to people, they ask questions about the work that's being done, and I'm sure that happened in the years before I was involved.
Did you solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein for the foundation?
I had no contact with Jeffrey Epstein. I did not solicit funds from Jeffrey Epstein.
Did you solicit any funds for the foundation from Ms. Maxwell?
I did not. Again, we're talking about the creation of the foundation. I was not involved in the creation of the foundation or the creation of CGI. In those early years, I was incredibly focused on my job in the Senate. Bill was focused on setting up the foundation and starting CGI.
And understanding you were occupied with your career as a senator and then your presidential campaign leading up to 2008. But at this time, were you discussing starting the CGI with President Clinton?
I'm going to object to any communications between the two of them. You can ask generally, but that's covered by the marital communications privilege.
Understood. So generally speaking,
I am sure that I talked to my husband about what he was doing to set up the foundation. It was more on the substance of the work. How many drugs was he getting made in India? What was the, idea that was going to motivate, CGI to be what he wanted it to be? It was not in the weeds. It was the concept. It was, the excitement that he had about trying to establish the foundation and CGI.
and similar question for Mr. Band. Did you discuss the creation of CGI with Mr. Band?
I may have, because he was around. He worked for my husband. He was a personal aide to my husband, but I don't have any.
Here's the reality. Your college degree took 4 years and $100,000. AI skills, 28 days and $20. Guess which one your boss cares about more in 2026?
Stop. Please stop using ChatGPT like it's Google. Get AI certified in 28 days and you won't recognize yourself.
So I'm over 42 and I just got AI certified in less than a month. One program changed everything. I didn't quit my job or spend thousands on courses. Instead, I joined the 28-day AI challenge.
What if I've never worked with AI before?
Perfect. This challenge is built for people over 40.
Yeah.
A simple learning routine that fits your life, not disrupts it. And the best part, you're AI certified at the end.
So when does the program start showing results?
In 1 week, you'll feel unstoppable.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks, you'll have your strategy. In a month, you'll wonder why you didn't start sooner. Tap the screen to join us.
It became clear to him that Epstein was not interested in the charitable work that was motivating Bill as he traveled around the world, getting people to commit to providing low-cost drugs for not just HIV/AIDS, but eventually tuberculosis, malaria, and other diseases.
And what is your understanding of Mr. Epstein no longer wanting to participate in the foundation's philanthropic goals?
I don't, only in preparation for this have I been told that, there was no real interest there. And, there was no point in being involved or connected to him.
And we touched on this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said you're not aware of Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation. Would you consider, let me back up. President Clinton took trips on Mr. Epstein's jet. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you consider offering a private jet as a donation in kind to the foundation?
Well, I don't know what the rules are under the 501c3 regulations, but it was certainly a gift, and he was, one of a number of people who provided transportation so that Bill could do the work he was doing.
I think we touched on this. Did Mr. Epstein end up donating to the foundation or CGI?
I have no personal knowledge of that.
You're not aware of a $25,000 donation from Mr. Epstein's affiliated companies to the foundation?
Only what I was told was alleged in preparation for this testimony. I did not know about that, and I don't know that it's true.
Are you aware of the Clinton Foundation reviewing any records in regard to Mr. Epstein donating to the foundation?
I will have to ask our lawyers. I did not.
Have you had any conversations about the foundation reviewing those donations made by Mr. Epstein?
I think I'll have to ask our lawyers. I don't know. I didn't review them.
Understood. Ms. Mace, do you have some questions?
I did. Thank you for being here this afternoon. In your opening remarks, you mentioned this is political theater and partisan. Do you believe the Epstein files are a vast right-wing conspiracy?
I think if they are fully released as the Transparency Act requires, that would be fulfilling the responsibility of the Justice Department. But it appears that there have been many issues with the full release. So I'm not going to characterize it other than to say I think that's a well-known fact.
Are you aware that both Republicans and Democrats voted to subpoena you and your husband?
I am here.
Okay. Are you aware both Republicans and Democrats voted to hold you in contempt when you didn't show up?
I am here.
Is that partisan when both parties vote to do something together? Is that partisan or nonpartisan?
I think it's standing up for the institution, but there are many other aspects of the committee's work that strikes me as a boy here who has actual information that might be useful to your investigation.
As a survivor, I'm a survivor. I appreciated your opening statement and your prioritizing some of these issues. Have you always believed this way? Have you believed this way for some time?
Have I what?
Have you believed what you believed in your opening statement for some time?
Yes, I have.
How long have you had those beliefs or held those beliefs in your opening statement?
Very long.
In 1998, you had those same beliefs?
Yes.
2005?
Yes.
2008?
Yes.
2012?
Sure.
2016? 2020? 2024 to present day, you've held these beliefs the whole time?
Yes, I have.
Have you always believed that women abused by powerful men should be believed?
I know where you're going with this, and I have nothing to say about anything in the past.